day, everybody. Terilee Harrison here with another edition of Terilee Talks. And today I am joined by the amazing Gary Glass. I know that you're going to be so excited to meet him and hear from him. Hi, Gary. How are you?
I'm fabulous, Terilee. It's another beautiful day in Southern California, and the sun's out on the right side of the grass, and everything's just beautiful.
Woo, sounds so good. We're in Houston. It's been a little rainy lately, but I think it does that here, huh?
Yeah, I used to have some Houston property, and when it rained, it dumped.
Oh, I'm telling you. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm so glad to have you with me today. Everybody, today our 3 tips and strategies are for business owners. Strategies for business owners from the world's richest man. Gary, thanks so much for bringing this to us. Oh my gosh. How many of you are excited and intrigued now?
Yeah, it's it's not like new skills. It's skills that people have been using for time immemorial. And the gentleman that I'm going to be calling the world's richest man, I mean, a lot of people have heard of this guy for a long time. He's an American. He ended up selling a steel mill back in 1901 for $480 million. Which if you take into cost of inflation and all today's dollars, that'd be about $400 billion, and probably the richest man around that it could compete with him would be Richard Bezos today, and he's only at 150 billion. So just a little bit more than a third of what Carnegie earned in his lifetime, and such a beautiful thing. Carnegie's goal was in the first half of his life to earn as much money as he possibly could, and in the second half of his life to just give it all away. So I think a lot of people don't realize that Carnegie, he ended up building something on the order of 3,400 libraries all over the world, and just absolutely amazing. So and the interest, probably even a more interesting thing about Carnegie is Carnegie grew up absolutely poverty-stricken, poor as a church mouse. Came from Scotland, came to the United States, started off working as a bobbin boy, which means he was loading up thread for garments to be made, and by the end of his life, or at least halfway into his lifetime, here he is, richest man in the world, and he wanted the ideas and the principles that he'd learned to be able to be passed on to the common man. And so for so long, he was looking for somebody to be able to teach those to just anybody. Mm-hmm. And so who he ended up running across was a man named Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill ends up being a newspaper reporter, writing articles for a newspaper just on the most successful people in the world, or most successful people in the area. He was out at Washington, D.C. at the time, and just got the assignment to interview Carnegie. And that interview was supposed to be an hour. It turned into 3 hours. And then Carnegie ends up saying to Hill, "No, this isn't done. You got to come to the house." Mm-hmm. So they end up talking for 3 whole days. Just absolutely amazing. And at the end of the 3 days, Carnegie ends up asking Hill, "Are you willing to spend the next 20 years of your life dedicated to studying the laws of success and what makes men successful without pay? I'm not going to pay you. You've got to foot your own bill. You've got to, and Hill at the time, he was working as the newspaper reporter, living in a 1-bedroom apartment with his brother in Washington, D.C., and wanting to be able to pay his brother's way through law school. And then they were going to flip roles. The brother was going to pay for Napoleon Hill to go through law school, and just absolutely just an amazing story. So
good. I love it. Your passion for this, and if it's all right, I'd love to introduce you more formally to our listeners so that they can get to know you as
I've done some stuff.
I know Gary is cool, guys. Okay, so Gary Glass is a retired NASA engineer. He was on 3 spacecraft launch teams and procured telecommunications hardware for more than $20 missions. Additionally, he has been a real estate and small business owner and investor for over 25 years. His passion for achievement drew him to, you're going to know, the Napoleon Hill Institute, where he's now teaching and coaching the law of success that Napoleon Hill researched from over 500 of the most successful people in the world. Today, we're going to be talking about 3 tips on how to increase business owner success as provided by the richest man in the world. So, Gary, I think we should dive in. I thank you for sharing. I had no idea about the when Dale Carnegie met Napoleon Hill. That was awesome. Your first tip is to have a definite chief aim. Let's dive in. Let's dive in and get started here.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So many people don't know what they want to do, and if you don't know what to do, how can you ever be successful? And so the absolute number one thing that you really have to know is, what do you want? And there's so many areas that you can talk about that. And there's well, of course, I don't know, me, I always like starting off with physical, because if you start getting on a better track, both in terms of your health and in terms of your fitness, you can start to see small improvements and small wins early on, and then you end up conditioning yourself to understand that you can win, you can be successful. And after that, I like to go to mental, which in my world, it's wealth creation, whether it's in your job, whether it's in your investments, whether it's a small business. Underneath mental activities, I like to consider personal ideas. What kind of a house do you live in? What kind of a car? Then all the way down to professionally, and especially for the business owner, what do you really want? Where do you want your business to be? I know Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he ends up talking about, do you want to be a self-employed or an S with a small business? And he would define that as having fewer than 500 employees. Or do you want to be able to have a big business, something much larger, 500 employees or many, many more? And it all boils down to, and it's not like one is better or worse than the other. What do you want? What fits for your life? What do you want for a 5-year, 10-year goal moving out? And then after that, after the mental goals, I like considering the emotional goals, and what does that really talk about? That's really talking about your relationships. Now, in the context of business, you're talking with your employees, you're talking with your partners, you're talking with your vendors, with your suppliers, and I think just as important, in your personal life, how are your relationships going with your significant other? How are they going with friends, family, coworkers? Underneath that umbrella, I'd even include your emotional strengths. Where's your mindfulness? Where is your personal well-being? Your own wellness is just so critical to be considering these things in terms of what do you really want? And I gotta say, and then finally, spiritual. Now, spiritual doesn't need to be just religious. It can be philosophical too. And I highly suggest a study, whether it's religious or philosophical, because it helps you move forward. It helps you be able to be your best self, because so many people think, oh, it's have, do, be, and I find that that's absolutely backwards. It's all about your beingness. Once you be the person that can be successful, you end up becoming more successful and getting that beingness within you. So the study of philosophical ideas, the study of leadership, so important spiritually. And then associated with spiritual ideas, you've got philanthropic, your charity. What are you giving back? How can you improve society, and how can you creatively express yourself so that your life is all to the better? And shoot, when you think of this definiteness of purpose and of what you really, really want, you can, in so many things, in order to really understand what a thing is, you have to understand what a thing is not also. And so then the opposite of a definiteness of purpose, or a purpose with a definite chief aim, is a person that's probably is just drifting. They really don't know what they want to do. For example, maybe and this was my example, but this is my case. I came out of high school, had no clue what I wanted to do. Went to the local junior college for a couple years, didn't know what I wanted to do, ended up just floating around, ended up meeting some friends, making friends with some people, and we ended up a lot of time not going to class, maybe even not doing homework, not taking exams, and then ended up, what did I do? I was a fry cook. I taught rifle instruction at Y Camp for a summer, and then ended up just looking through the newspaper. Gee whiz, who can use me? Where can I benefit somebody else? I ended up becoming a plumber for like 6-7 years. I was like something on the order of a roto-rooter man. The business that I worked for was actually called the Drain Surgeon. I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah, that's cute.
Cute little, it's one of the last little vestiges that I have of the business I'd worked for. And at that time, hard work, dirty work, long hours, Monday through Friday from 8 in the morning to whenever you finished in the late afternoon. And then if you were on call that night, you'd be working till 10 o'clock at night, and then be on call every other weekend. And one day I ended up getting, it was early Monday morning, ended up getting the phone call from a lady down in Marina del Rey, very well-to-do area. Probably the most wealthy condominium I've ever seen. This woman had a 50-foot boat dock off of the Pacific Ocean, and where it just, so beautiful. You could just, and the boats and the yachts that were there were just absolutely just gorgeous. And so there I am cleaning out her kitchen sink. And so you go into the underground garage, and the pipes are up. You guys have probably all seen it. The pipes are up all on the ceiling. And you look for the empty pipe, and what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to have that pipe in front of you this way, and open up the sewer cap on the side so that everything flushes out. And for the life of me, I couldn't open that cap. I put it right in front of me. I popped that cap, and instantly I went from pristine clean to greasy, gooey, smelly, gucky, yucky. And it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because that quick, I made an instant decision that I committed to for the next 8 years. I decided I was going back to school. I decided I was going to go get technical degrees. I decided I was going to get a job with a big company. I decided I was going to get the big salary, the healthcare, the retirement plan, all of this stuff. And 8 years later, I graduated bachelor's in math, physics, master's in physics, and I'd gotten a job with NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, where I spent the next 30 years of my life working on the missions that would go to, I don't know, all over the solar system, including the rovers on Mars. And so I use that example because I went from drifting, becoming whoever I would be for other companies and other people, to instant committed decision. And once you have that kind of a committed decision, make that kind of a committed decision, I think any of us can do absolutely anything. So that definite chief aim, having a definite purpose, is one of just a key lesson that Carnegie gave to Hill, that Hill wrote for the rest of his, studied and then taught for the rest of his life.
What a great example your life is of that, right? I love that. If you could have just given that example and not shared in your personal life, but so many humans, like young people, we may not know what we want to do in the beginning, right? But having that definite chief aim, how that changed everything. I love that.
Yeah, making that decision on what you want to do, and then committing to it. Because if you don't commit to it, and that's what our second pearl is all about.
Let's go into it. It's applied faith. Let's talk about it.
Applied faith. You've got to really, really believe that you can do what you've decided to do. And what that belief will do is it'll spur somebody to do what's necessary to achieve the goal. Because if you don't commit to the goal, and if you don't believe that you'll achieve it, it's so easy, so many honest and true. Once I decided to become the engineer that I wanted to be, it was so easy to do what was needed to do. It would have also been so easy not to do what was needed to do. And if you don't do it, you don't get it. And in order to really prove that you have faith, my opinion is that you've really got to kind of push yourself into something over and above that you really think you can do. Take a little bit of risk. And the thing is, no one will ever be able to go any further than what they believe they can, as far as they can go. So you really have to shift your beliefs. And in order to do that, that's what the Institute does. We help people learn how to shift their beliefs so that they can go do whatever it is that they want to do.
So good. So good. Tell me, let's talk about your last point. Go ahead.
Oh, the final pearl that Carnegie taught Hill was persistence.
Yes.
And persistence is just if you get these three things, you can do bloody anything. Decide what you want to do. So have your definite chief aim, have applied faith, and then have persistence. And what I absolutely love, I've got the book back here. Here's a Hill writes in this book, fabulous book. Actually, this is the #1 best-selling book of all time since 1937. It's sold over 200 million copies. It's been in multiple languages. It's called Think and Grow Rich. It's also in multiple different focuses. There's Think and Grow Rich, a Black choice, Think and Grow Rich, a Latino choice, Think and Grow Rich, an Asian choice. There's Think and Grow Rich for women. And then it's in English and German and Spanish and Russian and Ukrainian and Chinese and all sorts of different, in Hindi and all. But the point I wanted to make with respect to persistence is there's this fabulous quote in this book where Hill says, there may be no heroic connotation to the word persistence, but the quality is to the character of man what carbon is to steel. So now, of course, the dictionary, I'd love to take the time to just break this down a little bit. The dictionary says that persistence means a firm or obstinate continuance of a course of action in spite of the difficulty or opposition. And what that means to me is that you've got to persist and that you've made a firm, committed decision to a goal on which you're going to be in action, and you're never going to give up on that goal, and you're going to achieve that. You've already decided that you're going to achieve that goal no matter what it takes. You're going to pay whatever price you need to pay. You're going to do whatever you need to do to obtain the goal. And what's interesting about goals is, I don't know, I always kind of like it with respect to a sailboat. The goal stays the goal. Where you want to end up stays, and how you get there. Maybe you tack one way for a little while, and then you change your mind and you tack another way. However, you get to the goal. It's the same way with a spacecraft. You change your trajectory. However, the goal never changes, but how you get there changes. But you go back to this idea in the context. What kind of actions are you taking while you're persisting? They're not heroic. They're not courageous. You don't have to be super brave. You just have to not quit. You just have to persist. Then the other part of the quote, he talks about steel. The quality of persistence is to the character of man what carbon is to steel. So what is steel? How is it made? Steel is nothing more than iron ore with a little bit of copper or a little bit of carbon added to it. Iron by itself, it's a pretty soft metal, and it's pretty easily formed. But what happens to iron when just that little bit of carbon is added? It makes the iron strong. It becomes steel. And when it's stronger, it can be used widely in all kinds of different applications. So if we go back to the quote, the quality of persistence is to the character of man. This firmness or strength in our decision-making process, the committed decisions that we've made. what carbon is to steel. That carbon makes the steel strong so that it'll last longer, so it'll function at a higher level, so it'll produce greater results and be able to have opportunity to be used so much more, so that persistence develops a person's mental strength. Persistence allows a person to function at a higher level. It allows a person to have greater results for their efforts and to have even greater opportunities so that that person can then be used more widely and within their own industry, within whatever industry. So just to repeat the quote again, that there may be no heroic connotation to the word persistence, but the quality is the character of man, what carbon is to steel. So persistence, that little extra added ingredient that helps a person increase their character, to make their character stronger, to give them that mental strength. It's just one of those things that you add persistence and there's no other option but success, and your success is inevitable. With persistence, even the snail made it to the ark. So
so good and so right, man. You are so encouraging and motivational and inspirational. I love it, Gary. Thank you so much for sharing that. Your 3 tips are the definite chief aim, apply faith, and persistence. So if people have enjoyed connecting with you today, how can they reach out to you? And I think that you have something that you might like to share with them.
Oh, absolutely. If anybody's interested, go ahead and reach out to me at my email address, and we'll put that somehow. We'll get that into this. What do we call this? Live stream. Yep. And what I'll do is I'll send you out a free copy of the book that the Napoleon Hill Institute is now studying every weekday. The book is The Science of Personal Achievement, and that'll be a PDF. And I'll make another invitation. We're studying every day, Monday through Friday, and every Friday we invite people to come along and study with us. And then if you like, I'll give you a free 30-minute coaching session with me, and we can work on your mindset. What you'll find in every business is you need 3 things. You've got to work on your inner game, which is your mindset. How is your mindset? And then you've got to work on your outer game, which is the skill set in your particular business. And then my favorite word, lovely application, that favorite word being application. You got to do the work. If you don't do the work, you don't get the results. And so I'd love if anyone was willing, I'd be happy to help.
That's an amazing offer, Gary. It's an amazing offer. Well, I thank you for coming and inspiring us today, teaching us these key concepts. And it's been a real joy to be with you here on this edition of Terilee Talks. So thank you to Gary. Thank you to all who are tuning in, and wishing everyone an amazing time until our next edition of Terilee Talks Live. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Terilee. God bless you. God bless us all.